Hello, everyone. And this in the biz is what we call Take Two. Welcome to this week's episode of Feed Your Soul. I'm your host, Jamie Geller. And I'm so proud to say that this show is produced by Aish. So, Aish is a global organization that's been dedicated for the last 45 years to bringing timeless Jewish wisdom to our modern lives. So, God willing, we'll do just a little bit of that today through the lens of food. And we'll also take a look at what it means to cook for our families, like the soulful and spiritual sides of things, not just the recipes. But we always start with an amazing guest and an amazing recipe. So this week, I need to tell you, our guest is Amy Zitelman, the innovative CEO and co-founder of the premium tahini brand Soom Foods. Amy is the youngest of the Soom sisters, has been featured in food and beverage category of Forbes 30 under 30, the class of 2018, and is the author of the Tahini Table, Go Beyond Hummus with 100 recipes for every meal and in between. Amy is married to Darren, has a son named Henry, a dog named Taz, and another little one on the way. She is in my hometown of Philadelphia and coming to us live right now. I'm so excited to have Amy on the show. Hi, Amy.
Hi, how are you?
We did it. We made it. We will not let any technical difficulties get in the way of us making Smokin Baba.
Yes, exactly. Bezrat Hashem, right? Yeah, Smokin Baba is one of my favorite things to have at home. And I was able to prep some of the ingredients beforehand. So, Jamie, I'm sure you have some amazing recipes for Baba.
I do. And I always happen to think that the real secret is amazing tahina. So the fact that amazing tahini is the secret, it was like perfect that you're the guest for this particular show. And, we're in the week of, it's Yom HaAtzmaut tonight, Yom Yerushalayim, Jerusalem Day is coming up. We're in this week of like that sort of Israeli themed culinary mindset. And I felt like this was a really great Middle Eastern classic to have on the show today.
Perfect. And the first step to making a good baba is making a good tahini sauce. So if you're whipping up any kind of Israeli cuisine this week, you have to have the staple of a basic lemon tahina sauce in your fridge, which is what we're going to put together right now, actually. So what I've done is I've chopped 3 cloves of garlic. I don't know about you, but I love my tahina sauce super garlicky.
Well, my parents are from Transylvania. We put garlic in everything to the point that my American husband was like freaking out when I first married him. So I'm with you.
Because my husband's family is from Transylvania.
Wow. And I couldn't remember if it was your husband, Darren, or which of your sisters is married to the Israeli. Is it Darren?
My middle sister, Jackie, is married to the Israeli, Omri. They're from a beautiful moshav up north called Shavetzion. And it's Omri that introduced us to high quality tahina, or as we call it in the States, tahini. And that was really the impetus, their marriage, which led us on this journey to starting our tahini company, Soom Foods.
Well, I'm so happy they found each other.
Oh, me too. It was really at the hand of God, for sure.
Okay, so we start with 3 cloves of garlic crushed in there.
Crushed in there, along with a 1/4 cup of fresh squeezed lemon juice. And I like to just combine those together, let them sit. I'm realizing that I didn't grab my whisk out. And then the secret to a good tahina sauce is, of course, good tahina. Soom is pressed from sesame seeds from Ethiopia called white humera sesame seeds. And they're really renowned internationally for their qualities of pressing into tahini. They have a really rich, almost nutty flavor profile, a great oil to the rest of what we call sesame meat ratio, so it stays nicely emulsified, or when that oil separates naturally, it's easy to reblend. And it's just
tell people they shouldn't be nervous, Amy, when they open their tahini and they see the oil coming to the top. Like, people are like, is this bad? They're concerned if they don't know.
It's such a good question, and it's funny because as I was prepping for this, I always use the oldest tahini possible in our warehouse, and I was working on this jar because it's one of our much older tahinis. So like a natural nut butter, tahini separates, the oil will rise, and some of the sediment will kind of solidify at the bottom. If it's not too old, you can simply take a fork and dig up what's a little bit heavier at the bottom, back into the rest of the tahini, close the lid slightly, and then just give it a really good shake. Typically, that's what can get a good tahini reblended. Now, if you're like me and your tahini has been sitting for over a year, you can also work to bring up those solid forms into the tahini. And I'm not sure about you, but I love to keep my handheld immersion blender available for zhuzhing soups, or the Soom tahini jar lids are wide enough that you can actually stick an immersion blender right down into
Are
it.
you kidding me?
It was
Wow.
actually one of my COVID hacks that I didn't realize until I was cooking more than normal during COVID, and it was really life-changing.
Amazing. I love that. Thank you for that tip. So how much are
Yeah.
we putting in here, Aim?
So we're putting in a cup of tahini. It seems like a lot of tahini, but as you know, when you start to put tahini sauce on some things, you start to put it on everything. So a cup of
Everything.
bring
Tell
right
me
in.
the craziest thing that you put tahini on, and then I'll tell you the craziest thing we do. And I want to see if we're unique or if you've heard of our idea before. So you tell me first.
The craziest thing I put tahini on, oh, I don't think anything's crazy because I believe tahini goes on everything. But I guess people are most surprised when I put tahini on. No, not your viewers won't think this is crazy. Greek yogurt, like with honey. I just totally sweeten it up.
I put my tahini on yogurt as well, and I actually add Ceylon to it, which is date honey, which I think is sort of what I call the peanut butter and jelly of Israel. It's like, to me, that fantastic. But my husband puts tahini, are you ready for this, on pizza. Slathers it all over his pizza, and now the whole family does it. Our extended family does it. We cannot eat pizza without tahini.
Like without tahini prepared, tahini sauce,
yes,
water, lemon, garlic.
We make tahini sauce, and then when I just started, I saw him do it. I thought it was like so out there, like cheese and tahini. So I like warm cheese. I was like, I wasn't sure about it, so I would just dip my crust in it. Now it's like we literally just slathered over the piece of pizza, over the cheese, over everything. We like by the bucket. We make it when we sit down as a family of 8 for pizza. It's like, where's the tahini? And like no one wants to have the pizza if they don't have the tahini sauce.
That's so funny. And that's one of the most confusing things, right? When we talk about tahini, tahina, tahini sauce, plain tahini. I mean, in Israel, the term tahini is ubiquitous for pretty much any type of culinary application. Yeah. But in the United States, tahini was a much less familiar ingredient. Tahini sauce has become more popular because of its application on falafel or used in hummus. Yeah. And we've really been working to help educate people. And so the term tahini or tahina, as really it's just raw form ground sesame seeds, is the same exact term. It's actually the Greek pronunciation is tahini. The Arabic and Israeli Hebrew pronunciation is tahina. And it was actually Greek cuisine that was much more popular in the States well before Israeli cuisine that introduced tahini to the American market, and why Americans are more familiar with the ingredient as, known as tahini instead of tahina.
Yeah. Right. Very interesting. Thank you for that little lesson.
But then also tahini is also the tahini sauce, which in Israel you put on everything, and that's what we're also making now. So we're going to be combining that tahina with lemon juice, the garlic, with 3/4 of a cup of cold water.
Yes, that's one of my tips to keep it. Yeah, nice and creamy and light colored. I feel like the cold water is fantastic. I completely agree, Amy.
Yeah, and don't be afraid when you start to blend this. You can always make this in a Cuisinart if you prefer. I actually love to do it with my whisk. Is that sometimes it might seem too thin, sometimes it might seem too thick. If it's too thick, just simply add in a little bit more water at a time. If it's too thin, of course, you can add in a little bit more tahini. But as you begin to whisk it together, you'll see it blend into a really beautiful tahina sauce.
So, Amy, sometimes it will seize up before it relaxes a little bit. So I know people get a little bit nervous about that. So any pointers on that, or just something to just whisk through it?
Whisk right through it. And so that's why some recipes, including my own, you can always just add a little bit of water at a time. So if you're adding just a little bit of water, you'll find that it seizes up. If you have a lot of gusto or you have very fresh tahini, you can combine the full amount and see that it really kind of pulls together much more easily. But don't be afraid. That's a natural response to tahini, which is super oily, mixing with water, right? Because of course those things naturally repel.
Right, but once you get through that, and I also do mine by hand all the time, and I'm even saying I do it. The whole family, my youngest kids make tahini sauce. Once you get through that, and it comes to this like creamy, dreamy, luxurious, velvety sauce almost, which I adore.
Exactly, and then I put about a teaspoon of cumin into my tahina sauce. Do you use cumin?
I use it a ton in my cooking, but not so much. I'm a little bit more of a purist, and I just do with the garlic, the lemon juice, the water, and the salt. So I love that addition, and it goes so well. It's really perfect.
It goes so well. And what's really nice is then that it's kind of prepared for when you're getting ready to combine it with other ingredients, whether it's the chickpeas to make hummus or simply, charred eggplant, which is what we're going to be doing, is just taking a quarter of a cup of the tahini sauce that we just made and chopping it right into some grilled eggplant.
So, Aim, how long will the tahini sauce last in the fridge?
Lasts about at least a week. I mean, we really recommend a week just to be safe. Once tahini mixes with water, that's when the reaction starts that tahini can become perishable. Otherwise, when you have, a pure tahini sitting in your pantry, it's actually shelf stable until you mix it with the water or with other ingredients. So that's something to keep in mind. And something that I love about tahini is it lasts for a long time. It's shelf stable. It's really no fuss.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so the Baba Ganoush is a smoked eggplant dip. And so Amy, you did the smoking on the stovetop. Like, how did you do it?
I actually did it right in my oven. And so I love to just put a full eggplant, pierce it with some fork piercings all around, and put it as close to the broiler as possible. Now, if you can do this on a la esh, right, like on a barbecue, it's highly recommended. But if the barbecue is not available, I put my oven on high broil, put the eggplant as close to the, top as possible, and let it cook for about 10 minutes on each side until you might be able to see here, but the crust gets really charred. It's super hot, and the whole eggplant kind of compresses on itself. It's just absolutely delicious.
Fantastic. And now, you just gonna peel away the crust with the skin with your hands, or how do you handle the skin?
I'm not. The reason why we call this Smokin Baba is because we just chop the skin right with the flesh of the eggplant, and we're gonna combine that with the tahini sauce, and you're gonna get a really charred, smoky, with the skin on Baba Ganoush.
I love that. That kind of reminds me of like what I call, my favorite is a dirty mashed potato with the skin like in there. I love that combination of that creamy and that skin. So I've done Baba Ganoush most often without the skin, but I love that addition for some texture and extra smokiness.
It's so, so delicious. And so really you can give this a rough chop, as small as you want the pieces to be as possible. Which is what we're
I wanted to tell viewers, anyone, you can always, guys, interrupt me with questions. If you have any questions for Amy, if you have any questions for me, we're making Smokin Baba with Amy from Soom Foods. And right now she's just going ahead and chopping the eggplant. So, oh, good. Okay, so we've got people saying they love tahina. Fabulous. Let us know where you're watching from. What the name of the tahini? I think Gila's asking, or Galit is asking. Kitty, sorry, I moved the camera like further away from me, so I don't even know if I got that right, so it's hard to see your name, but she's asking the name of the tahini. So Amy is using her brand of tahini, which is Soom Foods, so you can find that everywhere online. And people are enjoying the show. It's so nice. Please, guys, tell us where you're watching from, kind of how you're feeling today, what you like to make, what you like to put tahini on, even better, and maybe some of your favorite Middle Eastern and Israeli dips. Like I said, we're making Smokin Baba, and Amy's going to continue going.
And one of my favorite things about the tahini table was I really wanted to take ingredients and replicate them throughout the recipes. And so let's say you're inspired to buy a few eggplants and you don't know what to do with it. We have several different recipes of how to use eggplants, which is a very familiar and traditional complement to a good tahini sauce. And so really is one of my favorites because I'll eat this with chips. I'll put this on my sandwiches. You'll find it's like the best accompaniment if you're making any grilled meats this week, right, for all of these Israeli holidays. So
I love it with grilled meat. And I love what you just sort of introduced it to, like the nachos. Like, let's get on. We have guacamole on there. Let's get some Baba Ganoush on there. I love that idea.
With a tahini sauce. Yeah, I use a good tahini sauce, and you can play with the ratio of the water. You can play with the seasonings, of course. But it's a great substitute for sour cream. And that's one of the ways that my family really fell in love and passionate about tahini was the fact that it was such a great substitute for dairy, for creaminess, right? Whether in a soup or as a sauce. And to keep kosher, it's one of like the best little secrets, right? Or tricks that you can get that really creamy consistency and keeping it parve.
I love that idea. Oh, great. We have people speaking from Australia. Okay, any tips they want to know removing the liquid from the eggplant?
Yes, absolutely.
Tell them not to call you, Amy. You're
The liquid for
live.
me, I don't even remove it when I cook it this way. When you sear an eggplant totally whole, you don't need to worry about the bitterness that's going to come through, especially when you cook it at such a high temperature. Cooking it on the barbecue or right under the broiler condenses the flesh, and it actually, I don't know about you, Jamie, but I don't have an issue with the bitterness of eggplant when I cook it this way, where I do when I slice it.
Very much so. I completely agree. And when I slice it, we even have a video we can actually post down below, which will show you how to properly slice and fry your eggplant slices if you're making a sabich or if you're throwing it into your shawarma or your falafel. And then I definitely salt the eggplant prior and then sort of let it sweat out and then pat it dry before I go ahead and fry. But I do agree. People are saying they love your cookbook. What is your favorite thing to cook from the cookbook?
Great. I just want to let you guys know I'm putting a 1/4 cup of the tahini sauce we just made
Great.
right into my eggplant dish, into my eggplant.
I love that you just kind of chopped it rustic. I like that.
It's super chopped. I'm keeping a silicone spatula around. You'll find that tahini sticks to anything, whether it's a measuring cup or this, and it's just so helpful to clear out anything that you're trying to measure. So another tip are these silicone spatulas.
Great. So they're asking you from the tahini table, what is your favorite thing to make?
So the thing that means the most to me is a recipe called Mom's Chicken. When we first started Soom, our mother was very inspired to use tahini more than how we were, growing up. And we found a recipe actually in the New York Times. It was for a turmeric chicken, but it used Greek yogurt. And since we keep kosher, my mom and I decided to just whip up a tahini sauce, do the rest of the recipe very similar. It has charred and pickled red onions on it, really crispy chickpeas. And we made it, and it was such a hit. And so it's really one of my favorite recipes to make is the turmeric tahini chicken. It's called Mom's Chicken in my cookbook.
Right. So I love that, Amy. It's a great segue. Okay, finish your thought. Go ahead.
I was just going to say real quick, the other thing that I always keep on hand, it's actually right behind me, is our maple tahini granola. It is my favorite snack. Morning, afternoon, late at night with milk or on yogurt. It's really the most delicious granola.
I love that. I think we actually threw up a recipe or picture of that before. And I remember you saying that that's one of your favorites, and our producer's going ahead and throwing that up right now. I love, love, love the idea of tahini and granola and maple. Just like I was speaking before about sort of Ceylon honey, all that's such a beautiful complement to the tahini. So fantastic idea. And it's one of those things you also keep on the counter, keep on hand, like you said, and just add it straight up for a snack or add it to as a breakfast cereal to your yogurts for crunch. So that's a great idea. Now you're talking about your mom, you're talking about your sisters, the companies with your 3 sisters. Just talk to me about food and family. And a lot of you kept referencing, because you're kosher, you're using tahini, as a substitute for dairy. Talk to me a little bit about what it means to have a family company like this, and specifically as it relates to, you didn't just pick anything. You picked, I think, something that's sort of close to home with tahini. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we were inspired by our mom our whole lives. Our mom was an entrepreneur. Both our parents are entrepreneurs, so I think entrepreneurship kind of runs in mine and my sister's blood. But our mother was actually so successful with her business that it allowed our father to go into entrepreneurship before I was even born. And so she's always really been a force of professional success, a working mother, just a great example to us. And, my sisters and I never grew up thinking we were going to start a business together. And we also didn't grow up in such a cooking heavy family. We love to eat, but I wouldn't say that it was cooking in the kitchen that really brought us together. What's funny is that on both sides of my family, our line into culinary is entrepreneurial. And, my father's father had a restaurant. He wasn't the chef. He was the host and the restaurateur, the business side of it. Our mother's father was a butcher. And so it's just so interesting now that it was tahini, right? This healthful and delicious, nutritious, versatile ingredient that we came to through a union of different families. It was Jackie making Aliyah and marrying Omri that really brought us to this opportunity to put what our family, I think, does best and cares about, which is good business, good economy, curating something for the community, and what Jackie's husband Omri does so well, which is knows and loves and has the highest standard for tahini. So it's been a wild ride. We've been doing it for almost 10 years. The idea for Soom came about in 2011. So
before tahini was trending, you guys were doing it.
Oh yeah, way before. I mean, people thought we were crazy. That's really what we found when we did our market research, was that most people in our market is really here in the States, but most people were unfamiliar with tahini. They didn't know what it was. If they knew what it was, they only bought it once to make hummus, right, on the bottom shelf of the international aisle, and they didn't know the name of the brand that they kept at home. And then they threw it away 6 months later because it was impossible to work with. It didn't taste good, and they didn't know what else to do with it. And so, exactly, we really had this mission, which we're still on, to make tahini a more popular, familiar, and appreciated ingredient in the American market.
Well, I always say if hummus can make it, right? If there can be a Super Bowl commercial for hummus, and if that can be set alongside the nachos with the salsa, then tahini is just like right on the heels of that. And I think that you came to it at such an excellent time. Talk to me a little bit about, what it means to you in terms of representing a little bit of the Israeli cuisine and the Middle Eastern cuisine, and how that sort of plays into some of your passion, even though, like you said, it was actually Greek cuisine that introduced it to the Jewish market, but you guys have a connection to it through Israel and through Jackie's husband. So how does that play into what you guys do and your passion?
Well, everything really. I mean, our family values come from Jewish roots, and they're actually highly influenced through Aish HaTorah. Our father came back towards like almost really truly Baal Tshuva through studying with Aish rabbis when I was in middle school to high school. So he wasn't raised with much observancy, nor was my mother. And both of them, through actually a relationship with Aish HaTorah and now other observant communities in the Maryland area, the Washington, D.C. area, really helped establish our family values that I would say were heightened in a Jewish sense from the, at least the generation prior. And so we went to a Jewish day school, and we were raised Zionistic. And it's funny because we were connected to Israel, but it wasn't until Jackie moved there, made Aliyah, and married Omri, a very Israeli, like mamash, from the fringe of Israel, right? Not a center Israeli. That helped our family feel much more connected to Israel culturally and personally. And it was Omri that's been in the tahina industry, even in Israel. At this point, he's very involved in sesame trade out of Ethiopia. And that was what is our connection, like our love to Israel, to Omri and his family. And I guess like a manifestation of those values and everything that we learned about Israel and our, Jewish values in a business. So it's been an interesting journey.
It's so special. I love to hear. I feel like I knew a lot about you, but I love to learn more about you. Before I ask you my last question, Amy, would you want to show everyone, maybe you could lift it a little closer and they can kind of see what's going on and how you recommend eating it and how you store it. Just give a few more tips about the Smokin Baba.
Yes. Gorgeous. So the last things that I'm doing is, I'm just making sure I'm not frozen.
No, you're good. We can hear you. So you're perfect.
Okay, awesome. The last things I'm doing is putting in a tablespoon of lemon juice, about 2 tablespoons of fresh cut parsley, and
I love that you added the green. I love it.
The green, and about a big pinch really of sea salt. And you'll combine that, and when you're ready to serve it, I would just put it in a bowl or spread it on a plate and top it with about a tablespoon of good olive oil. And I'll tell you, people will not be able to stop eating this. It's just an unbelievably flavorful, rich, textured, delicious dip.
I absolutely adore it. And then if there is any leftovers, which I don't anticipate, but just saying, how would people store that in the fridge and how long will it stay?
Yeah, so I love to store it in an airtight container. I choose glass just because it's easier to clean, but it really doesn't matter. And it will stay for about a week. But this really only makes a serving for maybe 4 people as an appetizer. I promise you this will be gone between my lunch and dinner tonight today.
I'm just jealous I'm not eating with you, but I'll think of you when we're picnicking and barbecuing tomorrow for Yom Ha'atzmaut. And now, like, you're inspiring me. I feel like I need to make some Smokin Baba for the barbecue.
One of the first things Omri made for me was just an eggplant like thrown on a grill, and it was so Israeli. It was so rustic, right? He topped it with some raw tahina and some olive oil and some salt and lemon juice. And we just ate it like cut up whole straight from the grill. And this really reminds me of that that dish. And for me, yeah, I was in Israel barbecuing for Yom Ha'atzmaut. For sure, it'd be pargiot and like a full eggplant, and of course tahini sauce on the side. And gosh, I miss and just wish I could be in Israel right now.
We've got to. We hope this guy's real open. Someone's writing tahini is very versatile, and we completely agree. You're talking preaching to the choir here. If you want the cookbook, I'm sure it's available on Amazon, Amy, right?
On
The
Amazon,
tahini
on
table
our
on your
website,
right.
soomfoods.com, wherever books are sold, really, hopefully.
Yeah. We hope the skies will open, and we hope that you'll get to be here soon. And I want to just reference two more quick things before we go. One is that you mentioned the whole tahini. I have a recipe, and I love the whole eggplant, excuse me, for a deconstructed baba, right? So exactly what you just described, where you do like smoke that whole eggplant, you serve it in half, you drizzle the tahini on top, you put the parsley on top, and even I've seen it done. We've done it a few times with pomegranate seeds to just bring some like sweetness to that, and it's fantastic. And then with the pita or the laffa or whatever it is you're using, you just scrape right into that skin. So that's like a little bit of like a deconstructed version of what Amy just made. We'll link to her recipe and to all of the recipes that I've referenced below. And my last question for you is, you're very upfront and open about, your story, and Jackie's making Aliyah. It's on your website, and it tells how she met her husband and how the whole, everything started. So how much does being so like very proudly and openly Jewish and connected to Israel play into this very public role in life that you have? I'm just wondering about how some of the values might play into it, or how you might feel that you're representing the Jewish people or Israeli cuisine or Middle Eastern cuisine in any kind of way.
Well, I would not define myself as a I guess shlicha, right, for like Israeli cuisine, but I know that and we work really hard. Like, yes, we're very transparent and open about lots of stuff about ourselves, but you won't find us, trying to be super verbal on more confrontational issues or anything like that. And that's the reason, is really because we believe in tahina for itself, for the ingredient itself. There are so many countries that claim it as an important part of their cuisine, even to the point of sesame paste, right? Like in Asian cuisine. And we really just want to be like facilitators of other people's learnings, other people's appreciation for the ingredient. But ultimately, when you come from a family with Jewish values, and you start your own business, the best part of being an entrepreneur is you get to establish those values into your business. And so what I love is that we've been able to build a team and a company that holds true to the values that we were raised with, and continue, to learn through a Jewish lens. And that's what makes me most proud, is the fact that we're creating this good business, this good economy, and that's really all rooted in our familial values.
I love that. I love that you shared the connection with Aish. I did not know that. So that's very, very special. And I always say that food ultimately unites us and allows us to come around the table and realize that we are more alike than we are different. And it's the ultimate sort of conduit for conversation and good times. And I love that you've taken tahini and, most familiar to me, obviously, culturally through Israeli cuisine, but that you've sort of taken all of the places that it hits, whether it's Asian cuisine or Greek cuisine, and sort of bring it together. So I feel like we're not only united through food, but we're united through tahini, across the world. It's a great global unifier. Amy's here, the CEO from Soom Foods, author of the Tahini Table. You can find online. We'll put her credits below, so you can follow her on social, and you can also visit her website, Soom Foods, at Soom Foods on social, and I believe it's soomfoods.com. Correct, Amy?
You've got it.
Thank you so much. Tell your sisters that I miss them. Tell your mom and dad they should have a lot of Jewish nachas from you guys, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you. Great to see you. Talk soon.
Always, Amy. Thank you. All right, guys, so that was another episode of Feed Your Soul. I love really touching on the cooking and sort of the soulful, spiritual aspects of what it means to cook for our families, entertain, the heart and soul and the passion that goes into it. And in this case, it was great to hear Amy's perspective on the heart and soul and passion of being an entrepreneur in the food space. The name of the cookbook people were asking is the Tahini Table. If you have any other questions, always post them here in the comments throughout the show. Whatever I see that pops up, I always like to answer. And always just tell me where you're watching from. That's my favorite part. Tell me how you're feeling today. I love seeing from Amsterdam, the Netherlands. I see that is from Australia. Oh, Montreal. Hi, guys. It's so great. Australia again. You now live in Tel Aviv. So great watching from Fair Lawn, New Jersey. Okay. I love it, love it, love it. Please tell me, continue to tell me where. I would love to know how you're feeling. In Israel, it's a very special time right now. We are in the eve of Yom HaAtzmaut, and coming up soon in a few weeks is Yom Yerushalayim and Jerusalem Day. So it's getting to be a very festive atmosphere here. And so we wanted to bring you like a very Israeli recipe. I do want to remind you guys that Feed Your Soul is brought to you by Aish. And I said it at the beginning of the program, and I really want to say it now. Aish is a 45-year legacy of bringing timeless Jewish wisdom and making it relevant to our modern lives. And here we're doing it through this show, through the lens of food, and like I said, both cooking and sort of the soulful, spiritual aspects of what it means to feed our families. And so if you have ideas about the type of shows, the type of recipes, the type of guests that you'd like us. We try to bring restaurateurs, cookbook authors, food entrepreneurs, but always please, please, please share them. It's special for me to be a part of this show because I get to wear both hats, right? Like all the fun Jamie Geller culinary stuff, talking about myself in the third person, but also my Aish hat as the Chief Media Marketing Officer at Aish. And it's just an honor to be able to bring those passions together. So thanks for watching, Mary Beth in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And a hey there in Seattle. Hey, Amy. And hi in London, Daniela. Hi, how are you? And Five Towns, New York. That's great. When I was first married, we lived in Far Rockaway, so I'm very familiar with that area. My mommy is in the house. Mom, I was like, what's going on? It's like not a show if you and Poppy are not there. So now I can actually sign off because my mama said hi. And I just want to tell you guys that we're sending you so much love from Israel. Things here are starting to get back a little bit into normal. And by normal, I mean that they're actually even saying that we may lift the need to wear masks in the outdoor space coming up next week. Classes are going back, just kids are going back to school, not even in capsules. So we just feel like we're on the precipice of spring and something exciting happening. And it's really my pleasure to come to you every week, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Do the math, at 7 p.m. in Israel and 9 a.m. on the West Coast, and whatever time it is, wherever you are, based on 12 p.m. Eastern. So figure it out. We'd love to see you here live each week. And of course, you can always catch the replay. Please always make sure you comment and tell me what you'd like to see in future shows. And I guess we'll just say something like b'te'avon, or as my mother would say, eat it in good health with a good appetite. Bon appetit. Bye-bye from this week of Feed Your Soul.